Ladies and gentlemen, our first panel for today is on inclusive and diverse leadership, entrepreneurship, mitigating biases and including diversity in idea generation. This panel will explore the real impact of having inclusive practices and how integrating diversity leads to enhanced outcomes for creativity and innovation. Our esteemed panelists will share their lived experiences and provide real-life examples to illustrate the positive correlation between inclusivity and success in entrepreneurship. Join us as we delve into these critical issues and uncover strategies to create a more inclusive and diverse entrepreneurial landscape. I am delighted to introduce our first speaker, Saugata Basu. With over 17 years of experience in official retail, FMCG, health tech, and digital commerce sectors, Saugata has led high-performance teams and managed multi-core PLLs. His career spans esteemed organizations like Britannia, Amazon, CultFit, Flipkart, and Myntra. Currently, Saugata heads the business for a global fashion brand in India, Ace Turtle. On a personal note, he is an out and proud gay man in a committed relationship for nearly 13 years. Together with his partner, they are parents to 4 children, 2 furry babies and 2 human babies, born through surrogacy. They live in Bangalore with their parents, celebrating their life that they have built. Please join me in welcoming Saugata Basu. Our second speaker for today is Ms. Sheenam Ori. Ms. Ori joined Broadridge Financial Solutions India as the Chief Operations Officer in September 2021 and was appointed as the Managing Director, Broadridge India on April 1st, 2022. Sheenam is responsible for driving the company's India strategy, which includes leading India's centers of excellence across technology, innovation, professional consulting, and managed services and operations. She brings over 2 decades of rich experience in engineering, global delivery, product management, and executive leadership roles. She is a versatile and strategic leader with a proven record of conceptualizing and delivering technology solutions for her customers. Prior to joining Broadridge, Sheenam was the Vice President of Dell Digital Services and an APJ CIO leader at Dell Technologies. Sheenam was recognized as the next generation women leader at the Zeno 2020 Confluence 2020 D&I Business Leader by Community Business, one of the top 20 catalysts in Indian IT by SME Channels 2019, and Women Icon of the Year at the GIWL Awards 2019 by UBS Forums. Recently, she received the Karnataka Women Leader of the Year 2021 award by Women Leadership Congress. Thank you for joining us, Ms. Sheenam. Our third speaker for the day is Ms. Apurva Bapna from WPP. Apurva is currently the Chief Culture Officer at WPP, where she is responsible to help build an organizational culture founded on openness, optimism, and collaboration. She is also responsible for driving the diversity and inclusion agenda at WPP for India. With a work experience of over 17 years across telecom, media, advertising, entertainment, and development sectors, she has built a well-respected repertoire across key organizational facets like talent development, business transformation, change management, culture integration, and business partnership. In the past, Apurva has worked with organizations like the Times of India Group, Hutchinson Wavoma earlier, a certified coach for Neuro Leadership Institute Singapore. She's also an art of living devotee, loves traveling, and counts her 10-year-old daughter as her best friend. Thank you for joining us, Ms. Bapna. I now call upon Janet Fernandez. Ms. Fernandez is a senior product engineer at Train Technologies with around 6 years of work experience. She will bring a young professional point of view in this discussion on diversity. And last but not least, I call Mr. Pankaj Rai, who will be moderating the session. Pankaj Rai, who is Aditya Birla Group's Chief Data Analytics Officer, has a professional experience of more than 25 years in strategy, consulting, and financial services. Pankaj was formerly a senior vice president at Wells Fargo, head of analytics at Dell, and head of PMO at Standard Chartered Bank. Pankaj has a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from IIT Delhi and an MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. In his free time, Pankaj enjoys long distance running, cycling, and meeting people at his favorite cafe in Bangalore's Koramangala. Thank you, Mr. Rai.
Thanks. Okay. So I was there yesterday, and lots of interesting discussions happened on digital and sustainability, and earlier Mr. R. Gopalakrishnan. So we were talking among ourselves in what is it that we can bring to the fore for the audience here. And we thought that this panel, and in case you didn't notice, actually represents very, very different vectors of diversity, if I can say so. Saugata, our gay man, and Janet represents the youth. So now there are these three sort of G's, as they say, the vectors of diversity: gender, geography, what's the third one? Generation, yeah. So she, yeah. So we have all these vectors represented here. So hopefully we will have a good discussion, bringing out unique perspectives that each of them bring to the table. So I think my first question to you all is to say, we are all talking about innovation, and we know innovation has been talked about in many different ways, lots of quantitative metrics that people, talked about. What is your connectivity of your sort of vector of diversity to the innovation agenda in your own experiences? So we will hear some stories from them and some ideas that we can all take away. So we'll start with Saugata, your story and thoughts.
I think good morning, everyone. Before I take that question, I would thank Unfold and the team for having me here on this panel amidst this august company. And I'm looking forward to this panel and for the rest of the day as well. So thank you, Pankaj. I think each one of us in our journeys have different experiences to share, and that all these experiences have actually played a big role in, kind of we becoming what we have eventually become, right? And as I said, right, and each of the diversity vectors or diversity components that we see in organizations today have had their own journeys. The community that I represent, right, corporate India is in day zero as far as the inclusivity of this community is concerned. There is good work happening, but there is a lot of work that needs to happen. Talking about my personal story, and as I was introduced, I have a career of close to 17 years. I haven't been out for 17 years for sure because the environment in India was not very conducive for a lot of these things to come out. So I've been out for the last 4-5 years, and I have seen my journey, and I have seen some of the journeys that organizations that I have been part of also making this journey in the last 4-5 years, and from where they were to where they are. And the organizations that I'm talking about are all, respected organizations, some of them global organizations where you would expect some of these, policies and some of these inclusivity angles to be existing already. But that wasn't really the case, right? From my personal experience, I would say that I have heard, I have also, kind of heard and, kind of faced, some of those, under the carpet sly comments here and there, right? There are people who've come by one of my ex-bosses, and of course, will not name anybody here, neither the organization nor the boss. So, that individual came in and, said that, you must be having a very, very difficult time because it's such a high pressure job you are handling, and you have, kids to handle at home. And I totally empathize, the women, the mothers, I'm sure they go through these kind of comments, these kind of statements at various points of time, right? And, I went through that. Somebody came in and said that, okay, you are a father through surrogacy, are you Karan Johar fan? Right? So those are some of the comments that I have also heard in my journey, right? And I have come to realize one thing, that, once you become very confident in who you are able to face some of these, comments, in a way that, that you are able to give back in a better way. Coming back to, I feel that, each one of us, right, each one of us who belongs to this community has taken this courage to come out and be what you are in your authentic self, you are adding a lot of value to the organization, because today all organizations that we are part of, the roles that we are doing have become extremely demanding, right? And if you are not able to bring your 100% to work, you are definitely not contributing to the organization to the extent the organization wants you to or expects you to, right? One of the stories I would say, and I had always said that, imagine if you come to work and one of the things that you are supposed to, before coming to work, put a big blue mark on your palm, and during the course of the day you are supposed to ensure that nobody sees that mark, right? And you are hiding it, from whomever you are meeting, you are hiding it, right? A large part of your mental bandwidth will go behind hiding it, and you're not really contributing to work, right? And a lot of people from the community that I belong to are actually hiding that, and a part of their mental bandwidth is going behind hiding that, and that's not contributing to your work. So if you really want that spirit to come out, you need to let people bring their authentic self to work and be what they are, and you'll see a lot of creative juices coming out, which will empower the entrepreneurship journeys and entrepreneurship experiences that companies want to cherish and build.
Thanks a lot, Saugata. In fact, when we were outside, Saugata also mentioned that, as he does what he does, I think he's also raising the empathy level in your team members, because the more people are able to accept people who are different from them, that somehow also reflects in their creative juices and outcomes and so on. So it's a sort of indirect correlation, but in some ways, your presence is creating a culture which sometimes we tend to ignore, and we think of it as a one-off event.
Absolutely.
Maybe you can say a few words on that.
Yeah, see, what happens is the two things I will say here, right? In any organization, one of the things that we try to drive is the culture of questioning the status quo, the culture of showing courage to question status quo and bring the change, right? And the more you get people, right, people who have questioned status quos in their own lives and have stood up and demonstrated courage to question that, those people will definitely add a lot of value to the organization, because they have lived experiences which they can put into use when it comes to the entrepreneurship journeys in their organizations. The second part is the empathy, right? You get to feel about somebody's challenges more if you have faced those or similar challenges yourselves. That's how human brains operate, right? Otherwise, you are empathizing perhaps on a superficial level, right? But if you have experiences, right, if you have seen those challenges, lived those challenges, you will be far more empathetic to the person who is facing similar or same challenges. And that actually enhances the quality of the team. That actually enhances the cohesiveness of the team. And that's what all organizations are driving towards, because if we are aiming for bigger milestones, bigger achievements, it's the teamwork which does the dream work, right? And if you are able to bring cohesiveness in the team, empathy plays a very big role. And I think that's what I believe very, very strongly.
Thanks, Saugata. Apurva, you've been part of a creative industry, so talk about your experiences in work and life.
Yeah, thanks, Pankaj. So I'll break the question into two parts. WPP, it's the largest advertising network globally, and in India, we're about 11,000 people today. We're traditionally known for making ads and, running them on different platforms across digital, television, outdoor, so on and so forth. But the business was changing. The client demands were changing as we sort of started growing. And there was a need for the organization to reinvent itself and start looking at how could you be more innovative and creative and offer diversified services to the clients which would meet their requirements. And therefore, there was a shift that was happening with our talent in terms of both the skill sets and also the mindset, because skill set is still easier because you can do trainings, you can do upskilling, but it's the mindset that people really need to embrace and understand why is change important, why do they need to change. So that journey started, and of course it's an ongoing journey because things keep changing. What was relevant 5 years back is now there is something new that's become more relevant, and therefore, from being known as a traditional creative network, we've actually grown into being what we call ourselves a creative transformation company today, where where talent is split into in a way that 5,000 of our people work in the global delivery centers, where the skill sets are completely different, where it's focused on technology, commerce, experience, and so on and so forth. So for a creative agency to make that shift was a big thing. The second part, which Shogata also spoke about, is the whole culture that we wanted to also build in the organization. Because while there is a business need for all this, there's also that people should feel the need to want to do things differently and creatively and all of that, right? For which you need to create an environment where people feel a sense of belonging, a sense of safety, so that they can be open about their ideas and thoughts. Also back failures, if there's no fear of failure, and create a risk-taking appetite. Now, organically, there were many ways to do it, but I'll talk to you about what we did inorganically. We work on 3 pillars of diversity, equity, inclusion in our organization. One is around gender representation, to have more women in our workforce. We work with the LGBTQI plus community, and when you said about the fact that we are starting on day 0, slightly beg to differ. I think there is some progress that's happening in the corporate world today, and I'm quite proud of the fact that our organization has done some things which 5 years back I wouldn't imagine my organization to do. And the third is around people with disability and neurodiversity, the entire spectrum, right? And those are the areas that we've now started consciously working on, not necessarily, with the idea that it should lead to X amount of profit, X amount of, client development, etc., but really to create an organization where people feel that, they can bring in their authentic selves to work. And we've done that through different initiatives and interventions. We've seen the change happening. We've seen the shift happening, where better retention scores, people feel more engaged, people feel more happy about working in the organization. There are different metrics that we've put in place to actually measure that. So I think that's the journey that we've been on as an advertising company. And of course, the journey doesn't end. I mean, there's no destination to this journey. We'll be on this journey constantly as things keep changing and evolving.
So, Apurva, one other vector of diversity, and you mentioned it outside, was, initially it was more of these humanities, creative people, and suddenly you have engineers and data science people. So how did that sort of type of talent, when they started coming in, play out? Because in many places, they say, oh, we are creative. We don't listen to these data people and stuff like that. So how did that whole, happen?
So that's a good question. So obviously, I mean, for creative people, it was very hard to accept suddenly there is this new talent coming to my organization who's talking in a language that we don't necessarily understand. But there was a compelling business case for it. The narratives were shifting in the market, and today the way we look at, for example, the way we look at technology as a company is, we say that creatives can never be replaced. The prowess that a creative brings in is irreplaceable. But what technology can do is that it can enable great work to happen. How many of you have seen the Mondelez ad that Shah Rukh Khan did 2 years back on Diwali? It was pure work of artificial intelligence done by a creative person, but enabled by technology, allowing for last mile, shopkeeper in Bombay to come on the TV or on the digital platform to talk about the product that they have, so that people could go and buy from them. Now that is what technology is doing for people. So if you're able to, and communication therefore plays a very, very important role, Pankaj. I think letting people know that why are you making that shift and what will happen as a result of shift and how will that impact them positively is what really helps. So there's been constant communication to say that the shift is happening. And also I think the pressure comes from the space that you're in. When you know that today, for example, last example, but the Coca-Cola business that we won 3 years back, we won it globally minus one country, which is Japan, where Dentsu is the agency. Coca-Cola started off as a traditional creative, mandate that we got from them. Today we are working on their first-party data. Today we are working on their e-commerce experience. Today we are working on Coke Bharat, which is their music platform that we've built. So there's this whole services that we've started offering, and for that you needed the right kind of talent. And today the teams work far more cohesively and collaboratively, knowing that everyone's work is adding up to a larger sort of a purpose for the brand or for whatever that you're working for. So I think that communication, knowing why am I doing, what am I doing, and then all that adding up to sort of recognizing the work that the teams are doing collaboratively has really helped in acceptance of the diverse skill sets that we have.
Thanks, Apurva. So Janet, you are the youngest and the most technical person on this panel from whatever I can make out. So please share with us your story and your thoughts.
Sure. So before that, again, I would also like to thank the Unfold team to keep me amidst of people who carry this level of expertise. I'm really honored that I got this opportunity. Answering to your question, 6 years back when I joined Train Technologies, I was surprised to know that I was the first woman in that team. There was a team of around 20 men, and I was the only woman. Now that I knew that, okay, they are expecting something out of me. Now, I can talk about two Gs, the gender as well as the generation gap. Now, I came without any experience, it was really intimidating. Everybody feels that, when you join, you always feel intimidated. So how do I overcome that was my first question. So that's when I started looking at people, see how others work and how collaborative they are. And being a woman, just like yesterday, Gopalakrishnan sir brought up parenting. I think women are always collaborative in the personal life. They always have to manage your mother's house and in-laws' house. So I knew that I'll have to collaborate between different cross functions. So I got an opportunity to work as a project manager as well as engineering lead. When you're young, you always try to grab opportunities, right? So I grabbed that. I got an opportunity to work as both project manager and also show my technical perspective. So that's where we proved that a project can be successful when you collaborate between different teams. No, it's not just engineering. You need design, you need manufacturing, you need procurement, and all of them sit different globe. They're all not based from India, right? So you sit here and you manage different functions across globe, right? That was one of the advantage of being a woman that I found that I could give my team back. Now that encouraged my team to bring in more diverse. So 6 years back, the diversity percentage was almost somewhere 6 to 10%. Now we've reached almost 28% to 30% in my team. Now, organization level, we've reached 40%. So this is the impact, generation, gender as well as generation can do in an organization. So, and another thing is, as I told we get intimidated and we come to that vulnerable stage where we grab every opportunities, right, to show, okay, I need to prove myself. No one should think, okay, I can't do this. So that's where you pull in more things on your plate, and then you realize, okay, this is not my core competence. One of that we as an organization we initiated a platform called Operation Possible, where we look into the absurdities that people face, especially the bottom of the pyramid. The last couple of years is what we started. We looked into food loss, we looked into plastic elimination, and then this year is sustainable or accessible environments for displaced people. Like refugees, the recent landslide that we saw, right? For people like that, what as a company we can provide them? The social responsibility comes in. Now, when we visited different refugees camps like Rohingyas and many displaced people in and around Bangalore, we learned a lot of issues that they are facing, like water, air, comfort, shelter, sanitation, cooking, wide range of problems. Now, when I got an opportunity, the vulnerable state I am in or I was in, I took everything. I was like, okay, we are going to form a group and we are going to solve every issue that refugees can face or are facing. Then only when we deep dive, we had this idea generation, and then when we are in the process to convert the ideas into solution, we identified, hey, for a sanitation, we have to give bio-toilets. Are we competent enough? Is our company competent enough to provide that? No. So we will have to accept that we cannot solve every issues, right? So we will have to have that our core competency intact. We know, okay, we are good at this, so we can provide feasible and valuable solution to people are in need. So these were my views or my learnings as a gender and generation. Thank you. Yeah, and an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and I really like the idea that you converted your fear into doing something and doing good for others and so on. And the other thing that I took away was that, your generation has been given an opportunity by our generation to save the world.
True.
So, Sheenam, you are like the Dasha Avatar who has so many different experiences. So, talk to us about some of the experiences that you want this audience to know from.
Okay, Pankaj. So I think, first of all, thank you, Unfold. Thank you, Pooja, for having me here and giving me the privilege to talk to this audience. When I was growing up, and I grew up a long time back, right? Pankaj knows. I'm not going to talk about that, but at that time there was no diversity, right? Diversity was not even a fashionable word. Today it's a business imperative. I've seen the journey of no diversity, then diversity becoming a fashionable word. Then maybe we should do it, then it becoming a business imperative. So we've changed and evolved over time. But what I will do, Pankaj, is a little different from what the rest of the panelists have done, is talk about biases that exist from a location perspective, right? And the sheer culture that we have as Indians, and how does it get seen by the rest of the globe, right? And therefore, how it can be a barrier to innovation for ourselves, to entrepreneurship for ourselves, and how we are trying to change that at Broadridge. So when I joined Broadridge, and this was the first time I was doing a role in this capacity as the head of the GCC, a lot of feedback came to my table, right? When I met my stakeholders, when I met global leaders. India does only execution, they don't think, they follow the SOP, which is very good, but they just follow the SOP. We don't get any statuses from India. I don't know that things are turning red. They're always reported green. They say yes, but they never do it. Okay, and these are things that are not unique to Broadridge. I've faced this in my previous avatars. And if you look down, I think from a culture perspective, we don't have the art of saying no. We don't have the art of saying, listen, buddy, I disagree. I have a better solution and I can tell you that. Right? So there are ways and means that you can put your thoughts out to your end customers, to your stakeholders, and really therefore brainstorm and debate discussions leading to different thought processes, and therefore entrepreneurship, intrapreneurship, whatever you want to call it. When I talk to my own team members and the leaders, okay, it was, we don't get a seat at the table, we don't have a voice at the table, we're not able to say no, okay, they just expect us to do, they don't want us to think, they don't listen to us. So there was this dichotomy where you had people who wanted to say something but were unable to say it, and people who wanted us to say things but were not able to hear it from us. Clearly leading to biases in both sets of minds, right? There was a bias on the other hand. There is a very strong bias in our India leadership, right? So what we did, Pankaj, about 18 months back is we launched a campaign. We called that campaign I Am Boundless, which essentially means I can do anything. You tell me to do it, I have the capability to do everything. And we said the end result of that is that we will have global citizens, we will have global leaders, and we will reach there through two tenets. One was ownership and one was entrepreneurship. In ownership, we started with ownership, and we divided ownership into three categories. We said ownership of the output, which means if I have to deliver something, I better deliver it well. I better deliver it with quality. I better ensure that if I am delivering, and we are a fintech, and we are a platform company, so you're delivering a platform, you better deliver it with zero defects to the customer. But let's take it to the next level of outcomes, right? And have your engineers at the lowest level start to think about how the customer is consuming what I'm delivering to him or her. What is the impact on the customer's landscape of that one delivery that we have made, of that one patch that we have made? And nothing comes to your mind, more than the CrowdStrike and the Amazon, outages that we have had in the last 2 weeks. But really ensuring that the customer is able to integrate what you have delivered seamlessly, and that outcome is important. Have you started to think about that? And to my surprise, a lot of my India leaders were agnostic to how the customer, the end customer, was really consuming what they were creating. So getting that in and them starting to understand and get that empathy, as we have heard from the rest of the panelists, for the customers was important. The last part of ownership is the impact, right? How do you measure impact? Is the customer really happy with what you delivered? Did you deliver what the customer wanted? Did it solve the customer's problems? Was it really a problem for the customer? So have you debated with the customer and provided intelligence through an account management function, through a pre-sales function, to say, maybe this is not what you want and this is what I'm hearing from you. And really getting to a better impact that your customer can deliver to his or her clients, right? So really, measure through NPS, measure through referenceability, measure through how your revenues are increasing, how your margins are increasing. So that's a journey that we have been on. We have recently, last 6 months, also launched the entrepreneurship in it. And that's really categorized into two pieces. One is, how do you take risks? Which means, how do you say no, right? The first thing. If you don't agree, say no and say, I'm saying no because, right? So say no and stick to that stand, debate and come to a consensus, then deliver on that consensus. Whether it's your viewpoint or the other person's viewpoint, deliver on that. And what we've seen is a lot of our leaders now have got places on global tables because suddenly they're saying, oh shit, he can think. Right? Really, I'm not joking, okay? And I have people who in global all hands are saying, Sudhakar from the India team delivered this. This had never happened. And it's the same people, right? We have not really gone out and hired somebody. So all you have done is actually cleared the bias from the minds of the leaders in India, right? So risk taking, the ability to say no, the ability to say, maybe I'll try this on the side and tell you whether it works or not. Okay, and the next level is innovation, which is what we're going to launch this year, is really, one of the visions that we've got from a Broadridge perspective is AI everywhere. Okay, so how do we actually put AI into developer productivity, into customer experience, into quality, into documentation? In every function, can we leverage technology to be better? So that is what I would want to leave the audience with.
Very, very powerful story. And I think a lot of people work in global companies, and many a time this geography is limiting us. We think, oh, we are in India, we are away from the customer. Well, we have all the data, we have all the digital expertise, and it's the mindset. If you change to end, I think. And
you mentioned a very important point about customers, right? If you actually look at it, most of your customers will have shop here, right? I recently did a first day-long client summit in India on the 25th of July. And we had 90 people from our customers, 90 leaders from 20 logos here, all CXOs making global decisions on Broadridge products. So you're not so away, right? Zero distance can happen in India.
Thank you, Shinam. So second and the last question. So each of you, in a crisp way, if you can summarize and tell this audience, what is it that they should think about when they go on their innovation or entrepreneurship journey in their organization based on whatever you've seen? So your advice in a crisp way to the audience. Apurva.
So actually, 3-4 things I would say. Firstly, consciously work towards building diverse teams. Don't make it like a good thing to do, but make it a strategic imperative and work towards building that, because you know that what diversity can do for organization, and there's enough stats and sort of data points to do that. Secondly, invest in your people in terms of reskilling and upskilling them, because building diverse team is one thing, but you also need to create skill sets which are relevant and which will keep them employable for a long time. Third is create an organization which allows for risk and which also allows for failure to happen. I know it's a nice textbook thing to say, but it needs a conscious effort from the leadership to really sort of build on that. And it takes a while because there are lots of, like she was mentioning about biases. There are lots of biases come because when you have leaders who've been in the organization for a really, really long time, there is a sense of complacency that sets into the organization, and therefore you need to come out of that and allow for that. And the last part is that you need to have a systematic way of recognizing and rewarding diverse teams who bring in different ideas, innovation, efficiencies, effectiveness, etc. And I say all this because not everybody is going to be creative and not everybody is going to be bringing in unique ideas. A lot of people who keep doing repetitive jobs bring in a lot of process efficiency, and therefore you need to cater to both spectrums of talent in the organization through a systematic process of reward and recognition. We are doing some of that. I'm not saying that we've got it 100% right. We're on that journey, but I do think that these are some of the things that will really help organizations to, embrace creating an innovative sort of work environment.
So I think quite a lot of what Apurva also mentioned, but one of the things which I strongly believe in is to let go of subconscious biases, right? And that's something which we all have, that the burden of subconscious biases kind of holds us back in our creative juices to flow, in our abilities to perform to their fullest ability, I would say. So, and the example is, of course, if I belong to the LGBT community, you are supposed to be creative, right? You're not supposed to make business decisions, right? You're supposed to talk a certain way, walk a certain way. And you, of course, you will be part of my, discussions and meetings, but things to do with creative angle, because you would be a creative person. Now, those are subconscious biases, and I've also experienced that. But, I think that's very important, that when you are getting into entrepreneurship or, building entrepreneurship in your organizations, let go of your biases, right, and let people be. The second thing is celebrating failures, right? I think, one of the organizations, and I can name that organization because, it's Myntra, and they have done brilliantly on that. So one of our annual awards is on something which has failed. Right? Of course, you don't really aim or strive to get that award, and, you would not ideally want to fail and then get that award. You will also have to, come up with, what were the learnings and why did it fail? How will you do things differently? But the idea of trying something different, trying something new, which has failed and yet got acknowledged and rewarded. I think in addition to the points which Apurva mentioned, I think these are my two, strong points which I would like to talk about.
Again, so as a young engineer, I feel that we need to be open to take challenges, right, apart from our daily routine, our day in, day out job. So that's where, we can find who we are as well, right? What are we going to do? What is my key competency? And second thing is build a team, or have the organization give you that independence to fail. It's good to feel, just like how both of them told. Only then, the vulnerability that any young engineer would possess would dial down, right? And third thing is keep having your networking up, right? So you are young, you have to be seen by others. Right now, me coming from a mechanical background, you know how dominant the men can be, right? So we will have to go up and show them. And good thing is my organization has opened every platform for diversity people, the persons to show what they're capable of. So keep having that networking. Do org initiatives, don't just stick with your day in, day out routine. Show people that you exist. That is my biggest learning as a young engineer.
Very difficult to come at the end. But I think I'll go back to what I said earlier, and to build a little bit on the bias piece. There's a bias that exists in each one of our minds. I cannot do it. And I think I would leave you with a question when you come up with an answer to yourself, saying, no, this is something that I cannot do. Ask yourself why, and ask yourself those 5 whys. It always helps to challenge yourself. Think of a situation which is out of control for you, because then you can never do it. But think of ways in which you can bring it into your control. It's very important for you to be able to accomplish a task, to be able to convert that into something that is in your control, that you can execute, and that you have the power to change and manipulate therefore. So you have to ensure how you can navigate that. Networking is very, very critical. I'll give you a very simple example for the women in the room. I hear a lot of women coming back and telling me, we don't drink, so, we don't have time for smoking breaks. So we don't network, and therefore we miss out on important conversations. Good, and that was good before COVID. What happened during COVID? How much of networking did you do, and how much of networking did the men do? It's here, right here. And I used to tell the women pre-COVID also that you have lunch, and you also have coffee and tea, and you can do networking during lunch and during coffee. Calendarize it. Bring it into your control, right? So find ways and means to convert your own biases into actions that you can control. That is what I would do.
Thank you so much, Shinam. Let me conclude on my own takeaways. I think it all boiled down to a question of identity. And somehow, inadvertently, we are all assigned some identity: gender, geography, generation, engineer, whatever. And we sometimes become subservient to that identity. If only, and what I'm hearing from all of you, if only we thought of those identities as inputs to us, not the whole of us, and leverage that to be ourselves and therefore be boundless. That's my takeaway. Thank you all. Thanks
Beautifully
for
put, Pankaj. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll be outside and we'll engage with everyone.
First of all, thank you for the ideas and the thoughts that you put across. I'll try to articulate my question in the best possible way. I hope I don't tend to offend anybody. So, for me, as an individual, as a manager, the concept of diversity was very different. Having a grandmother who was a graduate makes a very different set of understanding of diversity. But once we look at the workplace, where, as it is correctly told, I come from a mechanical background, and I understand that it is a men-driven industry. But then companies, big corporates are moving towards diversity in a very aggressive manner, where they're having a great inclusion factor in their mind. But there comes a point where you have job profiles which might not have a very fitting diversity, candidate fitting into the role. And then managers are pushed to the corner to select a candidate who might not be the best choice for that position. Not with biases, but because of the apparent solution the candidates are bringing to the table. How do we mitigate that position where creating inclusivity for the diversity should not lead to another sort of bias against another gender? Your viewpoint.
So I totally relate to that. About 10 years back, when diversity became a fashion word, right? I had women walking up to me and saying, don't promote me, because my male colleague is saying, you're going to get promoted because you're a woman, right? And that's a very dangerous place to be in. And similarly, if you actually promote the woman because she's a woman, okay, I think you're being unfair not just to the woman, but also to the other people around you. So hire right, hire on meritocracy. What I do in the organization is I say, if you're going to hire somebody really senior, in the last two, I want to see a woman. Okay? Hire anybody after that, but I want to see a woman in the last two. If you're hiring junior level people, in the last 5, I want to see 2 women. After that, you hire whoever you want to see. But you have to make an effort to go out and look for women. Now, coming back to your question, we do 24/7 operations, and we have people working in the graveyard shift. To expect mothers, okay, to be in the graveyard shift, I think is impossible. Really, after a certain point of time, women need to move out of the BPO and into the development jobs. So we give them product management jobs, we give them BA jobs and stuff like that. It's very difficult to have gender diversity there. But the other kinds of diversities are still open, right? You can still have neurodiversity, you can still have people from the LGBTQI community, you can have generation. We do a lot of generation diversity in the BPO. We have a lot of PWDs in the BPO. So, you hire different kinds of talent to ensure that there is empathy on the floor, that there is sensitivity on the floor. That's critical.
If I may just take 1 minute to, just add to what Shireen is saying. Slightly divergent though, right? Because when you say that, this incumbent or this candidate is a perfect fit to this role, right? Is there a perfect fit? I think, the concept of perfect fits are a myth. Right? There is nowhere a perfect fit for any role and any candidate. It's always that you're making a choice and you are choosing something over something. So some of those biases that you mentioned are always there in hiring managers, right? So you are choosing somebody over something. So if you're talking about inclusivity, right, and let's understand this, and as Shireen also spoke about, she spoke about gender diversity and driving gender diversity for a maybe a leadership role, or maybe, and then she did speak about some of the other kind of roles where gender diversity can be difficult to drive, and hence look at other kind of diversities as well. So it's important, like, let's understand that some of the diversities that we are talking about, it's not about equality, it's about equity. People have started late, they have a distance to cover. So it's okay, right? If you understand, of course, there are some qualities or some skill sets which are non-compromisable. So when we go out to hire people for a team, for a role, there are must-haves and then there are good-to-haves, right? We don't compromise on the must-haves for sure, right? Because then in that case, you are setting that individual up for failure. If you are hiring him, her, or them only for the diversity element that they bring, you are setting that person up for failure, and that's not the right thing to do. But equally, it is also not, maybe it's not very unfair, to think about, some elements of diversity, because if you are choosing for one skill set, that person might be adding some other skill set to your team, which you are perhaps not, giving complete attention. So that's my point of view.
And you can actually generalize this idea to anything. Where are you following a metric or are you following a principle? So from time immemorial, even continues, salespeople or companies are measured on profit. Now you can get profit in many different ways, and we know people doing all of those things, whether you are a CFO or a sales guy. So as I'm just saying, doing the right thing, everyone has to figure out their own, moral compass and stuff like that. This is just one such trade-off that you are making. That's how it is. Thank you very much. Thank you, Pooja.
So thank you. Thank you. I think this was another experiment that we wanted to do, was actually bring diversity to the table, and not just role holders who are leading diversity programs, but to really hear it. And I'm Pankaj, thank you. It was a great curation. Thank you, Shinam. Thanks, Janet. Thanks, Apurva and Saugata. Great to meet you. I also have a surrogate baby and 3 furry children, so that's a common one that I share with you. So let's have Ved. We could have some felicitation, please, for yes. Thank you. Keep it alive here. Great example. Okay, big round of applause.